Did you think Facebook was going to be a company when you started?
I built the first version of Facebook because it's something that my friends and I wanted to use at Harvard, a directory and a way to connect with the other people around us. And I didn't think at all that it was going to be a company. I remember very specifically the night that we launched the first version. I went out to get pizza with a couple of my friends who now work here, and I remember really clearly we were talking about how one day we thought that someone was going to build a community like this for the world, and that would be some company. But it clearly wasn't going to be us. I mean, it wasn't even.
It didn't even occur.
Yeah, no, I mean, it wasn't even an option that we considered that it might be us. I mean, we just weren't focused on building a company back then. We were just building something that we thought would be useful at our school.
What about the bigger bets, like making a large acquisition or the rollout of Newsfeed or something like that? How do those decisions work?
So I actually think when you do stuff well, you shouldn't have to do big crazy things, right? So you want to actually evolve in a way where you're working with your community and making steps and learning. So take Newsfeed, for example. That was a relatively big shift, but it actually had been a couple of years in the making by watching how people were using the service, right? So, when we started off, we didn't have anything like Newsfeed that showed you updates from what people were sharing. We just had profiles. And what we found were, originally one of the big behaviors was people would just click around, right? They'd click on different profiles, hundreds of them, and they'd go through all their friends to see what people had changed, right? To see what the update was in their friend's day. And we learned from that people were not just interested in looking up and learning about a person, but also understanding the day-to-day changes. So, first we made this product that just showed in order which of your friends had updated their profile, right? So that at least told you whose profile to click on. And then, the first version of Newsfeed was really simple. All it did was it basically took the content that people were posting and put it in order on your homepage. So I think when things are working well, you use data and you use the qualitative feedback that you're getting from listening to how your community is using your product to tell you what problems to go solve. And then you basically use intuition to figure out what the solutions to those problems might be. And then you test those hypotheses by rolling them out and getting more data and feedback on that. And then that gives you a sense of where to go. When I look at things like, we bought, the Oculus team for a lot of money, right? I actually view that as, if we'd done a better job of building up some of the expertise to do some of that stuff internally, then, maybe we wouldn't have had to do that. But, instead we hadn't done that. And, the Oculus team is by far the most talented team working on that problem. So it just made sense to go make this big move. But I actually kind of think as CEO, it's your job to not get into a position where you need to be doing these crazy things, right? And,
yes.
Of course it's inevitable, over the period of doing stuff, you can't be ahead of everything. So it's better to make big moves and be willing to do that than, have pride and not do that and never admit that you could have done something better in the past. But I think when stuff is working well, you're learning incrementally and growing that way. I always think that the most important thing that entrepreneurs should do is pick something they care about, work on it, but don't actually commit to turning it into a company until it's working. And I think that if you look at the data of like the very best companies that have gotten built, I actually think a tremendous % of them have been built that way and not from people who decided up front that they wanted to start a company, because you just get locked into some local minimum a lot of the time, a local maximum.
I totally agree. And just to make this point, how far into Facebook did it actually become a company?
I don't know. I think it became a formal Delaware company when Peter Thiel invested about 6 months in. When we were first talking to Peter about raising money, Dustin and I were very clear with him that we were planning on going back to school. Right? I mean, I started Facebook when I was a sophomore. We took the summer off, right? No classes over the summer. We were working on it. And then, our stated game plan was to go back to school in the fall and continue working on it then, but not like sit in an office and work on it full time. And Peter was just kind of like, all right, sure you are. I guess he knew better than we did.
I think he just believed that you weren't actually going to go back to school.
He must have. I mean, you'd have to ask him. But
yeah. I will. We're interviewing him in this series. I will
there
answer
you go.
that question.
I think he would probably say that he knew that we were not going to go back to school or believed that he could talk us out of it, but he didn't have to. It was pretty clear that the amount of work was just growing so quickly. But we actually didn't drop out immediately. We told Harvard that we were taking one semester off. And then we told Harvard that we were taking another semester off, and then a year off, and then after that we kind of decided we were